From illegal 1.20 blocks to furniture that looks modded, these are 101 Minecraft build hacks that I can guarantee you don't know. This may look like a magical optical illusion, but it's actually just a bunch of stairs and slabs placed in this special way. You can place coral fans on trapdoors like this to make colorful lily pads. Lanterns can also be placed below lily pads to make them glow at night. And you can finish up your pond by placing hanging roots below stained glass to add jellyfish. If you want to show off how rich you are, how about building a huge quartz grand piano? If you place dragon heads on armor stands below some stairs, the ears will pop out and look like keys. You can make rope bridges by building up fences and then attaching leads to them. Don't worry about him. This also works to make balloons. Yay! Ladders can be placed on trapdoors to make extra thin ladders that don't take up much room. And if you're really clever, you can use this to make double-sided ladders by using a layout like this. Glowstone and sea lanterns are things of the past. Instead, try placing turtle legs on top of end rods to make a lampshade. By placing an armor stand with a chainmail helmet inside a block like this, you can add a pressure plate on top and make a cool decorative chessboard. You can't play it though, not that I even know how. If you place food on an item frame below a pressure plate, looks like it's being served on a dinner plate. Most people make castle gates. They're called portcullises, by the way. Most people make portcullises with fences or walls, but the lecterns make a perfect and super unique version instead. Plain block walls can look boring, so try adding extra blocks of similar colors for more texture. This coupled with glass panes placed like this can make a room much more interesting. You could also just use wall blocks as they're literally made for building walls. You can even mix a type of wall round for extra variety. This also works for adding texture to outside walls. And finally, might be a good use for the brick block. People have been using cobwebs for chimney smoke since the dawn of time. So instead, you can use coral fans to create a similar but more interesting effect. Alternatively, you could use a campfire to make actual animated smoke to bring a little bit of life to your builds. But my favorite use for campfires is to place them under the floor in any of my spookier builds, lake, a cave, or a graveyard. The smoke will rise up and make fog that's mysterious and, honestly, a little claustrophobic. And for even more detail in these buildings, try using this square character to make it look like signs are nailed down. This works really well for boarding up doors and windows. You can even use spruce trap doors placed on the ground to give the effect that a door was broken down. Waterlogged stairs can be used to make tiny creeks that wind throughout your buildings, but a more practical use for them is to add water sources to your farms that you can't fall into. Animation is the best way to make any building come alive, and the absolute easiest way to do this is to hide a spore blossom somewhere. They create a bunch of these tiny little green particles that are just so pretty. Sometimes the flames from fire and campfires are just way too big, so instead try putting an armor stand below ground and lava for a much smaller and way cuter little flame. Oh, look at it, so tiny. By placing banners below stair blocks, you can make couches with cushions. This also works for beds and comfy chairs. If you want to be able to actually use your chairs, you can push a stair or slab into a minecart and you'll be able to sit in it. And if you want chairs to put outside, campfires make great benches coupled with signs and trapdoors. They also work great in log piles to add extra detail in the form of tiny little logs or sticks, as some people call them. I also like to add barrels, fences, and slabs to these to add extra detail and storage to a survival build like this. Most people use fences, slabs, or iron bars for balcony railings. But come on, I'm too short! I can't see over! Instead, try adding carpets on top of barriers to create this sleek, modern railing that you can actually see past. If you want to do this in survival, you can use string instead for the same effect. This trick also works to hide lighting blocks in your roof. Yeah, just ignore the cobwebs up there. They stop the roof falling down. Looms kind of look like empty bookshelves, so you can mix in a few to make it look like you actually read. If you want to add more life to a hedge, you can place sunflowers in invisible item frames to add flowers. Drip leaves also work really well as a natural archway if you need a way through. And of course, a garden isn't complete without a lawn, especially one of those weird stripy ones that rich people all seem to have for some reason. If you want to do the same, use lines of grass and moss to make it look realistic and perfectly mown. But if you want to do the opposite and make a barren, dead landscape, mangrove roots and spruce fences make a great dead bush that's much better looking than this. You can also use mangrove roots with stripped bark to make a dead tree, and basalt works perfectly to use in burned down forests. Also, for some reason, you can place fish and axolotls in waterlogged mangrove roots, which is just cruel. Why on earth is this a thing? Trapdoors and chains make perfect hanging chairs for garden or parks, and flower pots attached to chains look like hanging plants. But sometimes the chains that we have in the game just don't look like enough to hold up our big builds. So instead, try linking a bunch of grindstones like this. That looks much more stable. Pathways are super important for tying a village together. So instead of of just using gravel and cobblestone, try using andesite and even dead coral blocks for extra variety and texture. The same goes for floors. Mud mixed with brown mushrooms and terracotta makes an awesome floor for muddy farms. Barrels and spruce planks look great for a creaky attic floor. And beehives are a super interesting block to use for the floor of a cute little cottage you've built. You can also try using blast furnaces, cartography tables, and a bunch of other blocks to make unique and interesting floor designs. Be creative with it. Dripstone makes an awesome trunk for a palm tree. And you can even use conduits to add coconuts, at least if you squint. Think candles are just another light source? Here's a bunch of reasons why you're wrong. Firstly, you can make a pond plant called a cattail by placing a green candle on a glass pane. An end rod plus a candle, redstone torch, or iron bar makes a perfect sword replica. It's always annoyed me that lanterns can't float, but with the help of candles, they can. Damn, it kinda looks like Hogwarts in here. Red candles look suspiciously like tiny sticks of dynamite that you can mix with TNT for more detail in your cave builds. Cacti in real life often have pretty pink flowers on top. And you guessed it, pink candles perfectly replicate this. Building a computer on your computer is a classic for Minecraft. So when you've set up your painting and pressure plates, try using a candle in an item frame instead of a button as your mouse. It looks scarily accurate. And finally, grey candles and skeleton skulls on a stone wall make a really cool design. However, you can also just place string on top of walls to add a tiny piece of extra detail. You can place bushes, bamboo, cactus, or propagules in a flower pot below leaves to emulate trunks and stem for plants. And adding vines to these leaves adds a little bit of texture that stops these plants from looking too plain. Oh, I felt like I should remind you that the muddy mangrove root block exists. Why? Did you know that the best Minecraft builders actually get given a special custom cape by Mojang to show off how good they are? It's called the Realms Cape, and you can only get it if 3 or more of your maps have been accepted and used by Mojang themselves. And it looks way better than your Gucci jacket, mate. Dried kelp blocks look strangely like trash bags. Banners sway very subtly in the wind, which means you can use a specific banner design with trapdoors to make it look like they're a pair of blinking eyes. You can do the same with item frames to make flashing lights. Are regular carpets too boring for you? First of all, what's your problem? Carpets are awesome and fluffy and incredible, but secondly, you can use coral fans on waterlogged slabs to make more interesting 3D cool colorful carpets. Alternatively, you can place crimson or warped signs underneath to make different patterns, but they look best when you mix in lots of different blocks and techniques to add variety in both texture and depth. This works for bookshelves too. Beehives, stairs, looms, and more all work great to add extra interest and variety. Have you ever realized that frog lights look kind of like those paper lanterns people release on different holidays? Oh, this gives me an idea. Just add some hanging roots below and you've destroyed the environment. I made a beautiful light show. Yes, surrounding a bed with slabs makes it look kind of like a sleeping bag. But I've always thought the regular bed was quite small, so instead of just placing one down and leaving it at that, try making a bigger custom one like this. Also, I made these pillows with snow layer blocks. They look so soft. This layout of campfires, trapdoors, and hopper minecarts looks like a stovetop. And if you place a dragon head backwards, it kind of works perfectly as a toaster. Although I don't know if I'd want to eat that grey bread. But if you'd rather just cheat, you can use custom texture packs to change block designs for super detailed and useful new blocks. And if you want to go all the way, custom mob heads offer literally infinite possibilities for extra detail, like cakes, kitchen appliances, and smaller versions of blocks we already have. You can mix these in with blocks like iron bars to make things like CCTV cameras, but a skeleton head will work fine for this in a pinch. Oh, and if you've made a TV or computer somewhere in your house, backwards with the skeleton heads make great speakers. Sure, chests work fine, but campfires make for way cooler food storage. You could also take it one step further and use invisible item frames to hang fish off chains like this. Gold ore looks like honey that's dripped onto the floor. And gilded blackstone looks the same, but for lava instead. You can use stairs and slabs to add extra texture to walls like missing bricks, and to create holes as if it's crumbling and degrading. But if you're really dedicated to decoration, you can make maps with any design you want to, and then fill item frames up with them for custom wallpaper. Just stick to texture packs though. That's a lot of effort. You can easily set up a daylight sensor next to a bell to make a simple, functioning alarm clock. Alternatively, hook this up to arrow and healing dispensers next to a dog that shoots every morning for the rest of time. Speaking of, nether wart blocks make a fantastic blood substitute. For city builders, try placing a campfire below a loom to simulate a vent. This same technique also works for a barbecue barbecue grill. 1.20 already has me hyped. Check out these new bamboo blocks they're giving us. You can use these mosaic blocks to make cool floor patterns. And these new chiseled bookshelves for a new wall design. Maybe mix in other wooden blocks again to make it even more interesting. Sea pickles look kind of like pumpkin stems. And a stripped mangrove log, flower pot, and mangrove propagule put together makes a really big beetroot for farm decoration. But if that's not enough, try adding kegs made of trapdoors with raw iron in for potatoes and coral blocks in for berries and grapes. This works for other things too, like using a respawn anchor and trident instead to make a spooky animated witch's cauldron. Item frames and signs can actually be placed on the same block, letting you double label chests. You can even dye the sign for extra customization. Scaffolding makes a perfect table to put flower pots or other decorations on. Sometimes the only thing your build is missing is just a little bit of detail, and often buttons are the best solution to this. Whether it's dotting them around your roof and walls or chucking them next to a pond as pebbles, they're perfect for adding a little bit of extra interest. They make great fidget toys too. If you're looking for an extra block or color to add somewhere to your build, the answer is probably in a stripped log. Their textures are super simple, but with mangrove, jungle, acacia, and warped logs, there's tons of different and interesting colors to choose from. 6 lecterns placed like this look suspiciously like a coffin that's been broken out of. This pairs perfectly with a gravestone made of soul soil, anvils, and a wither skeleton skull. Where could this guy have gone? Subscribe!